Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So we start up now. I think perhaps while we are having the presentation, it will help if you mute unless you're speaking up, just to avoid too much noise on the recordings. And also, like Annette said, Paz said, you can write the questions during the presentation as well. And if there's any clarifying questions, we can take them during the presentation afterwards, or we can have a discussion afterwards as well if there's more questions coming up. There might be still coming participants into it. I can see Simon is now getting in, and there's other people signing up as well. So that's nice. So welcome to this webinar on CollabDecisions, or collaborative decisions. I'm happy to introduce that to you and start having a discussion and a debate about how to take decisions in the construction industry. We want to introduce a bit about who we are, what we're doing, and also why decisions matters in construction industry and on the other industries as well. We'll give a very short description about what is choosing by advantage. That could be a theme for a longer discussion or another webinar also at a later point as well. We'll explain a bit about a case, give a bit presentation on that one as well, and then explain all of you how you can engage with this collective decisions, how we can contribute and actually get in touch with us as well going forward. And then again, I hope that we'll have a lot of time for discussions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this just for you all to be aware of, and we will be sharing that on the webpage later. And I can see more people are joining now. That's fine. Is there anything on the chat, Paz, I need to see? Then you'll just need to let me know, because otherwise I'll just be looking at the presentation for now.
Yeah, don't worry. I just ask people to say their name and where they are connecting from. And
brilliant. Should we do that now?
Sure.
So can you call them out?
Yeah, I see Sahil from Deconstruct. Hello. Carlos Lepesquier from Peru. Steve Matthews, connecting from the UK. Hello, Steve. Sej, or not sure how to pronounce it.
Simon.
Simon. Simon, thank you. From Denmark. Hello, Simon. And I see Felipe, but I don't know where he's connecting from. Okay.
No. You might be sharing that later then.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Then there's the three of us. And perhaps, Paz, you'll start saying just a few words about yourself.
Yes, so hello everybody. My name is Paz Arroyo. I have been working with decision making for a long time. I did my PhD at UC Berkeley, and I studied how to make decisions collaboratively. I have done several experiments to understand how to help people reach consensus faster, how to make the decision-making process more transparently. I had consulted in the past and to help people reach consensus and make decisions, among them with high England. And now I'm joining DPR construction to work internally. So that's me. Randy?
Yes. Myself? Sorry? Philip? You're speaking up?
No, go ahead.
No, yes, now he's muted. That's better. Yes. Well, my name is Randy Crescens, and I'm originally from Denmark, and now I'm living in the UK, working as a lean and innovation manager on a very big project here in the UK. My background is also being an engineer. Had a PhD as well around lean construction and how to learn from project to project. And I've been a client for more than 5 years as well, working in the Danish Defence in their client organization and seeing it from the client's perspective. And then lately I've been working as a consultant from CoVi, which is the Danish engineering company, working here on a big tunnel projects in UK. I've also been head of the Lean Construction Association in Denmark for 6 years before moving here to the UK as well. On the project, which I'll tell you more about later, we are working very seriously with both Lean and choosing by advantage and decision methods in general. So I hope that I'll be able to share that as well, both in research and in this group as well. Annette?
Okay, I'm the last one. So I'm Annette Schöttler. I'm doing research for quite a long time. I'm still on my PhD, not finished, if anybody wants to ask me that. It's a question I still avoid. Nevertheless, so I'm doing research mostly in parts of collaboration in the public sector, construction sector, also lean construction, and in the decision-making process. That's also the merge with PAS. Since a couple of times we do research about like the tendering procedure and how to use CBA in the tendering procedure for public clients. And I'm also working as a lean consultant, helping project teams to understand and implement lean, which is sometimes quite a big challenge. Okay.
Brilliant, yeah. And the three of us have actually teamed up now because we think decisions are so important, and we thought, well, we have all been working with choosing by advantage, and in that respect have had a lot of chats together of how we can improve the construction industry by using such a tool. So going to the next slide. So we've joined up in this non-profit organization, which we call CollabDecisions, because we think we really need to work better in the construction industry to make more collective behavior in general, and in specific when it comes to decisions. And because the construction industry, we have quite a huge impact on other people, on other people's life, on other generations to come. It's very important that the decisions we do take during construction projects are really well thought of. And that's what we think we could improve with some of these methods. And we really like to discuss that further with all of you guys and develop that further for the benefit of the construction industry and society. So perhaps you can then explain a bit about why decision methods matters, and we can get back to what CollabDecisions are in the end of the presentation, explain how people can engage with us.
Yes. Thanks, Rondi. So why should we pay attention to decision-making process and methods? Well, first of all, because a lot of things that we do in construction are making decisions, and traditionally people is not, or teams are not aware of why a decision was made, and they are not aware of what's the impact of the decisions. And mostly they are not aware of the way in which you make decisions also influence your decision. So that's Jim Shure says that the most important thing that you have to learn is how to make decisions, because that will affect all the decisions that you're going to make in your personal life, in your job, and also in collaboration with others. So the other very important thing that it's been happening more and more in construction, it's a trend on collaboration. So we have seen in the US and also, Chile now, I see a lot more push for collaboration. More projects want to be IPD, want to integrate project delivery. They know if we work in silos, we're not going to get the best product out of the minds of the people that we're working with. So how can we actually make this collaborative process and take care of the concerns of everybody, and make this process in which you get consensus, but it's not a consensus that it's just the person that speaks louder gets to decide. Right, so this is very important. It's happening more and more in construction. So we need a way to learn to make decisions together, in which we understand the different perspectives, we take care of it, and we're conscious about the impact of the decisions we're making and how we're making. So we all three of us think this is key for improving construction industry. If you can go, yeah, thank you. So this is the decision-making process. So we want to be share research and share our knowledge and experience in how we deal with designing the decision-making process. So there's not one just one way of doing this, of course. I'm sure everybody of you has their own way of making decisions and their own process, but there are certain things that we have been studied, and we understand that there are good advice that we can provide to help you go through this process in a more smoother way and with get better results. So that's part of what we're doing here in CollabDecisions, sharing these ideas, knowledge, research, case studies in which things have people have tried different things and have had an impact. So in we look at the decision-making process, the different phases. So we want to understand, okay, when what's the stage setting phase, when people has to bring together, why are you making this decision, who needs to be involved. Then you have the innovation phase, which is where you create or discover alternatives to be and evaluate. Then you have the decision-making phase, in which there are so many different things of doing it, and we have a very particular way that we like and we promote. Specifically, we promote choosing by advantages, and not because we like it, but because we have been proving it's actually more efficient and more reliable. And it's also very well aligned with the lean thinking and lean ideas. And then we have the reconsideration phase and how we manage this process. I mean, how we give the opportunity to think, okay, did we make a good decision? Did we consider everybody? And then the last part, which is very important, is the implementation, right? A decision is successful when it's implemented, when people that it's impacted by the decisions is happy with the outcome, and it stays there until the situation changes, right? So that's the bigger idea. What are the things that we're considering? We're considering how to do these conversations, how to help people reach consensus, how to look at this process, and those are the topics that we want to share in this platform. So Annette is going to explain in more detail why choosing by advantages, why are we promoting specifically this method, and it's because of, well, I'll let her explain. Thank you, Annette.
Okay, can you go to the next slide, by the way? Thanks, Randy. So as past said before, CBA is a multi-criteria decision-making method that was developed by Jim Schur. And he published his first book about it in 1999, as you can see on the left-hand side from the slide. And but that's not the point where he started to think about decision-making. He started way earlier, but this was the first time CBA was published. And since then, there was a time where nothing happened. And now we try to get on it and push it in the construction industry. So why is CBA so great? One of the key principles in CBA is the anchor judgment, to compare and score between advantages of alternatives. And this is also a major difference to other methods such as weighted average, or which is also called weighting rating calculated, which we all use so much in any kind of ways. This is actually, I think, the major decision-making method which is used overall. So another major difference to other methods is that it doesn't combine value and cost. It's displaying cost and value in a diagram so that the decision-making team can see the options they have more clearly. So it doesn't mix cost with value. I also want to mention that CBA is a very transparent and structured framework because of its well-defined vocabulary. And this helps also the teams in the decision-making process. So is a great logic behind the method. Rennie, can you go to the next slide? And all right, I cannot see the whole slide. I don't know why he's cutting it, but never mind. So on the next slide, I just made illustrate some benefits to show you why this method is worth to apply. So we did like research and experience and simulations, and we did action research on real projects. And what you can see is that CBA leads to a constructive debate, better understanding of what is wanted, less misinterpretation. And it's also very clear to understand for a third party which wasn't involved in the decision-making process. Also, as Paz mentioned before, she did an experiment with students where teams reported that they are achieving faster consensus and felt less frustrated by using CBA in comparison to waiting, reading, calculating. From the real projects, we know that which Rennie, I guess, will also tell you a bit later on, is that teams reported that they are more confident about the high quality of the decisions because CBA separates between facts from opinions. Teams reported also better decision documentation and more productive conversations. And on another project, which was reported by Paz, and can be also found in these IGLC papers, is that on one IT project in San Francisco, they implemented CBA in combination with A3s, and they got a result of 11% savings on budget because of how they make the decisions and how the process worked. So these are all benefits to start think about. We should implement CBA. Randy, do you want to continue with your project?
Yes, I will, of course. Like I say, if there's any questions, just type them and we'll take clarified questions during the presentation. Well, I'm working on lower terms crossing, and I've been here for a couple of years now, working with lean and innovation. It's a fairly big project. It will be probably the world's third biggest tunnel of its kind east of London to connect the roads around London to the east. There's a budget around £4 to £6 billion. So yeah, it's a massive project, and even though right now we are preparing for consultation, I will guess that we are around 400 full-time people on the project. We're going out to consultation very shortly, and going out to consultation, we have been that once before on the project. In consultation period, you actually discover how important it is for you to have documentation and transparency behind your decisions in the design. You need to explain in a very non-engineering way why you choose to do something about something else for the wider public. And to do that, there's a huge work to clarify the design and what we're doing, and being able to explain that to people. Next year we will go for the DCO application, which is depending on the consultation as well, and hopefully we will open in 27. In the project, like I said, it's a pretty complicated project with a lot of designs going on. A lot of different teams has to work together. We have a lot of different specialists in each their field. In the beginning, we were doing decisions pretty much like normal, I think, projects are doing, either with the weighting, rating, calculation methods, or more often people were taking sometimes perhaps decisions without noticing that they were taking very important design decisions. And then, like in other projects, the design is being circulated internally in the project to be commented on from different disciplines. And that process showed to take a lot of time, because when you have so many different disciplines that all want to comment on something, and we need to incorporate that then back into the design, you'll sometimes have to redo design based on the comments you get. So we figured out that we might be having a better way of doing these decisions a bit more proactively up front. And that's why I remember that I actually attended one of Paz's workshops back in Oslo in the IGLC workshop there. And I thought, well, that might be something we could apply for this project and try it out. We tried it out on a few major decisions, and it actually showed out that these decisions were much more robust than some of the other design decisions we are making. It was a bit difficult in the beginning to explain to the wider team that for big and complicated decisions, we might need to do some workshops to take the decision. It's not enough that we have a senior engineer that's kind of claimed this is the best way going forward. Sometimes we do need to communicate about it before actually taking the decision. So, but when we had these few trials of CBA up front and they showed great potential, it was decided that more of the major design decisions should be used by using CBA. And right now we're actually using CBA for other types of decisions as well, such as procurement, packaging, and strategy. Also some things like internal services, what kind of service do we need, service provider and stuff like that for the project. So we are using a lot of CBA right now across the project, and the terminology, like Per said, or Annette said, is important for us because that makes us have a shared language on how to take decisions or make decisions. One thing we found out was that preparation of a decision is key. If you do the right preparation and actually, just recognizing that you're taking a decision and then prepare the decision, actually taking this decision and doing the assessment is fairly straightforward. So actually, if you do the preparation, there's much less work to do afterwards than actually documenting it. One of the ways we do prepare taking decisions on the project is by using collective planning or loss planner system. So key decisions are planned out using lean tools as well, so people know when is the last responsible minute actually to come with input to these key decisions. We have also trained a larger group of facilitators to actually use this method as well, so they can help out within teams to take perhaps sometimes more smaller decisions that doesn't need a full workshop. It perhaps only needs a meeting or an email structured in the right way, but at least, staying true to the terminology and to the process. So these trained facilitators makes a huge difference also to changing the culture of the project to be more collective and to kind of asking the right questions. And our aim by using CBA here is we want to ensure transparency and make sure that we have consensus around decisions, so the team doesn't question afterwards, why is this decision made about something else? And also just to continue learning, because sometimes you do take a decision that you do need to redo at a later stage. And if you have the right logic and the right documentation around the decision, you are able to learn as long as you go. But if you do not document why you took a certain decision and what is the reason behind it, it can be difficult to go back and actually visit that particular decision. Was there a question coming up in the comments field? Okay, brilliant. So what have we got out of it in the project so far? Well, there's a few citations here that shows that both the technical integration manager and our DCO lead is very positive about this method, and they think it's more robust and more efficient than taking decisions other ways. And generally, it seems like more and more people on the project buy into it. Some of them are doing CBAs by themselves now, and some of them are using facilitators and just asking for advices as well. We are trying to continuous refining this method and continuous doing it even better and better, which is involving different tools like decisions logs and standard tools that can be used for taking decisions as well. So you don't have to reinvent everything every time. So some of the process can be standardized according to what level of complexity you're talking about in the decisions. Was there a comment?
It's a more general question. I think we should do it at the end.
Brilliant. So yeah, generally, people on the project buys into this decision making quite well. And what I also see is that we're actually getting a lot of attention from outside the project as well, where people want to know more about what we're doing and why we're doing it this way, and want to learn from the project and from some of our facilitators as well. So we're happy to make these presentations and contribute where we can when it makes sense as well. Annette, perhaps you'll take next slide.
It's yours.
Or should I?
Yeah.
There's a kind of echo on right now. So if I'm looking a bit confused, that's why. We will, from CollabDecisions here, what we want to do is actually to engage all of you in more both debates and discussions about how to make better decisions. We will share some presentations as well on the web very shortly from this year's IGLC, where Annette and Paz presented papers from our side as well. There's papers and research as well on the web page where you can have more information on it. We also want to make blog posts about, shorter introductions to what is CBA actually, and also based on our IGLC presentations as well. So we want to present this material in so many different ways, so something would hopefully fit for your needs as well. It could be nice to hear from you as well, what topics could be interesting for you when it comes to webinars, and also what kind of training material and videos would you like to see us produce and actually start prioritizing. At the moment, we will figure out how to do it, but if you have other ways of contributing, let us know. You're more than welcome to stay in touch with us through the webpage or through our emails. You have them already, I think. And like I said, please write blog posts and share knowledge with us as well, so we can get that on. Would you say something, Annette? Yep.
Yes, that was my slide, but never mind. Just go ahead.
Sorry. But I'm not sure I have more to say on this slide, Annette. I don't know if you have anything you want to contribute with. We also talked about perhaps getting, if there was anyone who wants to sponsor or wants to contribute in that way as well to make this happening and make this work, please let us know. Because we will like to make this free for everyone, so people can, get knowledge and get engaged with this, because we think it makes a difference for the industry, and I think we have quite a big responsibility from the wider society to actually make construction projects less impactful on people's life in a negative way, and that's why we think this should be something we should share if we could.
Mm-hmm. So here, if you guys have tried choosing by advantages, or you have put thoughts into your projects, into the decision-making process, or if you have a story to tell, and we're happy to read about it, to share, to invite you to write a blog post, or if you know one paper that was really useful, also please feel free to send it to us, and we will be happy to share it through our platform.
Yeah. So I think this was kind of the small presentation from our side. I don't know if we should go through some of the general questions that was occurring in the chats.
Yes, so Sahil has a very good question. His question is, how is CBA flow different from Plan, Do, Check, Act workflow? So the idea of the Plan, Do, Check, Act is create continuous learning, right? Choosing by advantages is more specific to decisions and how to separate where the different alternatives and how you differentiate among them. So the flow pays attention to different things. I mean, in Plan, Do, Check, Act, it's not clear how do you come out with the plan, maybe this will be previous to plan, do, check, act. I mean, if you're thinking about different alternatives of construction methods that you could make, how do you decide which one, how do you prioritize which one to try first? You could use choosing by advantages first and then go through the cycle to learn from the experiment. So
yeah, I would like to add something. You could also see it as the following. When you have the plan, do, check, act, you have a decision you have to make, and you can say, with CBA, you're doing the doing and checking if the decision is good, and then based on that, you can act. So you can integrate the CBA method in the PDCA for decision. I mean, the loop can always be closed.
Good. Randy, do you have any comment on that?
Just I think that actually, I think they're going hand in hand, but like you said, have different different perspectives to it. And I think it's really important that we recognize that when we are taking or making decisions, what we actually are trying to do is predict the future, which is, again, make the plan. So every time you do take a decision, we're trying to predict what will happen if we take this alternative and what will happen if we do something else, which is predicting the future. And that's what we have to recognize, that every decision, we could risk doing it again, because, you know, things could turn out not like we assumed they would. So a very big part, at least on this project, on the decision is not actually not that much taking the decision. It's more about actually recognizing what assumption is it based on and what risk is related to this particular decision, which again then leads to the check afterwards and seeing, are these assumption and risk actually real? And if they're not real, we need to revisit that decision. And we have actually done that with one of the decisions on this project, because some of the assumptions turned out not to be true.
Great. Does that answer your question, Sahil? Yes? Good. Thank you. So we have another comment from Simon. I will appreciate some very practical examples on the method being used and looking into trying it out small. That's great that you let us know. There are some examples inside the papers that are published in the platform, but we're looking to create a very simple video to just explain the basics and go with how to go step by step to implement choosing by advantages. It's great that you're thinking about starting small. This is something that you should keep in mind when you're bringing this to your projects. Don't start with the most important decision, the one that everybody's fighting about. Start with something that it's not that relevant, so people put attention to actually the method and the steps so they can learn from it, and then you can move to something more complex. Yeah, Simon, I'm not going to answer your question right now. I'm not going to give you a good example, but we will. That's our commitment. Steve said, you mentioned use of large projects. The problem, challenge on most projects is preventing developing silos, highways, bridge, geotech, etc., etc. So we try to concentrate on one, identifying interfaces, two, managing interfaces. How will you deal with this with CBA? Okay, good. That's a very good question. So maybe Randy, you have better insights on this one. Go for it.
Yeah, because I do agree, Steve. Interfaces is the main thing, and that's the whole reason why we are using lean tools. I think in general is that we need to find ways of getting these different disciplines to talk to each other. At least in the major project, that is the key challenge. Like I said here, we have collective planning in place where we are mapping out some of the decisions, so people know what decision will be coming up. So also they know if that particular decision is relevant for this particular discipline, and if they need to contribute and be involved with it. People can also then speak up and say, well, that point of time to take this decision will be too late because I need the output of it beforehand. So that way we can kind of manage the time frame of that decision. We have actually a very specific role on this project, which is an integration manager that goes across the whole project. And he is key to our decision workshop because he knows what is going on in pretty much all the teams at all times. He's not a manager, but he knows what's going on and what are the key points, which means that he can always speak up and make sure the right people are engaged with the right decisions. And I think that is key to get someone who kind of know across disciplines what's going on, engaged in these decisions. But I will say that even though I work on a major program right now and CBA works fine here, CBA is just as applicable on small projects where you just sometimes have to have a structured conversation about why is you going with one scaffolding type and not another one, or why are you having an interim road on that side of the construction site and not on the other side of construction site. So particularly on safety, I think there's a really huge potential of having these structured conversations throughout projects, but also on smaller projects.
I would like to add something. I think also how CBA is like structured, it helps you to see the interfaces, because you have to define the factors, the criteria, you have to see which are the alternatives. So it also helps to see the other person's perspectives, because you're discussing with this framework your decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another point that it's very important is understanding how decisions are interconnected, right? How one affects the other, and when should you make those decisions. So there are other tools. So CBA does not help you necessarily with everything, but there are other lean ideas like target value design, when you have like a bigger picture of what's the value. You use set-based design to develop alternatives, to understand what's the last responsible moment. So when is the last moment that I have to make a decision? So I otherwise the project will be delayed, or I'm not going to have one alternative available. So all those things are that's why we want to pay attention to the whole process, not just to the method when you have the information. Is that useful, Steve? We can hear you.
I was listening with 1.5 ears and 1.5 brains, and typing you a supplementary question because I thought it was easier to type it in and then you've got a record of it. So
good. Okay, so another question for Sahil. How has revisiting a decision previously affected the opportunity, cost, and time? What do you mean, Sahil?
So as you mentioned, like previously there was a decision making done, and then there is a time when the decision had to be changed, like maybe the formwork type which was used previously, that was different, and now we are using the other type. So does it help in any way to acknowledge the decision making team, or does it help in any way to avoid the opportunity cost in some way for next projects, or it would be more beneficial to the team which is working on this in collaborative effort to get to know what all decisions have been previously made and then they got like changed later on? Would that be one way to look at it?
So documenting the decisions has a powerful it's a powerful thing, because you learn from this project and you can revisit it later. And what you try to avoid with this system is to constantly revisit decisions. That's the traditional way. I mean, we're always reiterating into the same decision because we didn't listen to the right people, we didn't take care of, we didn't think about all the alternatives, we didn't think about what were all the criteria that we should, or the relevant criteria that we should analyze. So in that sense, CBA implementing this systematically with within the team, in collaboration with owners, with whoever is affected for the decision, it helps to reduce that negative iteration for one project. And on the other hand, also you can. It's hard to copy and paste decisions because you're always in different contexts. I mean, it needs to have, you need to be in the same exact situation to make the same decision. So if you think about materials, for one context, wood will be very good, and for another context, steel will be very good, right? So it's not just, we're not trying to figure out what's the best thing to do forever, but just for a particular context. But yes, you can learn from decision to decision.
But what I think is also important is that we have like a standard process of how to reach decisions, and that actually make it more and more efficient to take decisions, because people know the process, and at least in this project, people have a kind of understanding of what factors might impact, certain decisions. Even though each decision is different, they still have in their mind kind of, a short list of factors that they at least need to consider, whether or not this factor impact this decision or not. And if it doesn't impact the decision, they just need to record why. And a key one is, for example, the safety one. Safety is something that is being considered in every single decision, but it's not in all decisions that safety is the one who makes the impact on what we actually want to choose. So, but people still know what kind of factors they need to go through and consider every time, and that makes a huge difference. Also, going back and revisiting a decision, which we have done on this project, if it's just something that have changed, an assumption, a risk, an input to the decision that have changed, well, we don't have to redo the whole decision. We just have to have some key persons to agree on how this change have impacted the decisions, so you can actually really fast make a change in the design, which before might have taken several weeks because people need to re-engage and need to discuss it again, and who said what and why, and this is 1.5 years ago and I can't really remember why we chose this one about something else last time. But if you have a structured record of the decision, it's really easy to go back. And actually I had another person on the project who wanted to redo a decision, and he said, I think we need to look at this particular decision again. And a whole team, not my perspective, but a whole team actually turned at him saying, can you explain exactly what have changed in this documentation of this decision? And he's kind of like, oh, no, is there any documentation? I was, yeah, go back and do your homework. So actually the team bought into it and say, well, we want to redo the decision, but you have to explain to us what have changed.
Yeah, one more thing. There's one case study in which we were able to, so it's an IGLC paper. It's published on our website. It's called CollabDecisions. So we talk the experience of one project in which they used CBA and A3s systematically, and we measure how much money they saved per the time they spent. And it was, the return on investment was super high. It was, I don't remember, more than 100%. I mean, you get so much benefits out of having these conversations and understanding why you're making decisions and avoiding getting over and over, and also aligning interest and understanding what's the best way of doing one. In this case, it was design. What was the best design for this particular client? They saved around 11% of the budget. That was $9 million in the scope of the building we were helping with design. So it has tangible results. It's not only I mean, I do believe people get happier working when they can collaborate and can make decisions together. That's true, but it also has immediate economic benefits. We have another question from Steve that it's very related. So it's more like how we make this practice to people, and how much it's people buying into this, and how resistant people is to CBA, and especially the political manipulation of decisions.
Yeah, there's actually two questions there, folks. The first one was a follow-on for the first one, and then I didn't realize that typing a second question would appear as part of the first one. So there's two questions there. The first one is really, and this sounds a little bit sort of arrogant, but it isn't really. Sometimes in order to get these ideas across to people, you have to explain to everybody. Obviously, some of the people who are essentially perhaps the people putting the concrete down or the reinforcement are not necessarily theoretically very astute, and so what you need to be able to do is to explain CBA in terms that everybody will understand. It works quite well with Lean because people get the idea that they're all collaborating, but you need to be able to explain CBA in sort of very simple terms so that everybody, for want of a better term, gets it.
Yes.
Right. May I start? So what I think is like, it's the same as Lean, it's the same as CBA. It's always, when you bring a new topic to people, it's always hard for some, and for some others it's easy. So because a team is consisting of different personalities and they have different learning speeds. And what I experienced, I'm implementing quite often the Last Plan Assistant, and I think it's the same topic. There are people who right away understand what we want to do with Last Planner, and we train them too. And there are some people who take more time, and it takes them quite long to understand. And there are also people who don't get it. But this is a normal way of how new things come into a project, or how new things come into society. This is like, this is diffusion of innovations, right? But I think CBA, if you have a good trainer, I think we could test it. It would be easy. It would be nice to make a study about it, like how easy is it to get them to understand. But I think Granny can maybe say more about that. But I think from the topic CBAs, if you explain it very well, it's not that hard.
Okay.
But maybe it takes some time, of course, because usually you have different people.
Yeah, in my experience, you need to be flexible. There are different strategies. Sometimes you can stop and have training and projects, large projects like Randy's project. They were able to stop, and we trained people and went through the vocabulary concepts together. And there are some projects in which you just need to coach them, and there's no there's the possibility of stopping and make the training. It's not there. I love to have always time to have training and for people to think about and reflect, but that's not always the reality of construction projects.
Yeah. Okay. The second part of the question was really wherever you get people together, then politics kicks in. And I'm just wondering, I can see that CBA might, because it's got, it's essentially a pretty rigorous process from the reading I've done about it. It does suggest to me that it could actually improve the resistance to political manipulation, because you're deciding things as a team, and anybody who wants to make any influence has to get round all the team and then to influence them in a workshop forum. But I'm wondering whether you'd actually explored this in any of his studies.
No, yet. It's a great point, though. But I believe one of the key things that choosing by advantages make is that you need to differentiate between facts and opinions. So important people may have opinions that some other guys will confuse with facts. But with CBA, you actually need to get very clearly what's a fact, and it doesn't matter who says that. I mean, that's a fact, and it can be proved and demonstrated. And there's the other things are opinions based on a more shared understanding of what are the facts about the matter that you're making the decision on. So that makes also for politics, for people with more power, and also with different personalities, like people that's more introvert or versus extrovert. Everybody has the opportunity to get the facts. I mean, if there's no facts, we cannot make a decision if we haven't done the homework to understand what are the and the same with men and women, gender or different. So I think there's a potential there. We haven't tested it yet, but that's something that we're very interested in measuring as a research project.
What about in the situation where in engineering, particularly at the early stages, and Randy, you must be going through this a little bit at the moment, where we have things which are not facts but are the best available. I'm thinking of transportation analyses and traffic data and economic data. I don't want to be rude to economics, but one of my nephews is a fairly powerful economic advisor, and my standing joke with him is, when are you going to get an answer? So. But you know, a lot of engineering is in the grey zone, and it goes from deep grey into light grey sometimes.
Yes.
But that's one of the beauties of this, Steve, is that you recognize what you know and what you don't know.
Right.
So actually, what we ask, at least in the project, is for people to evidence what they can evidence.
Yeah.
And if they can't evidence, like Paz is saying, a professional opinion is also a fact in the discussion.
Okay. Right.
But what I want, what we pay a lot of attention to, is to document what are the assumptions that we're taking at a time.
Yeah.
So, for example, right now we are taking a lot of assumptions when it comes to geotechnical investigations, because we don't have the full data set right now. But we have to take some assumptions based on gut feeling of what we have at the moment, and we document that. But we also implement then the red flag. So if one of these assumptions are not showing to be true, we do need to go back and revisit. Yeah,
no, that's okay. I've used assumptions in that sort of role on other things of this nature, where the key thing, as you say, is to record them. And if you've got a page of serious assumptions, then you know instantly where your big risks are, really, and you can go straight back to them.
Exactly. And to your question about the political manipulation, I think that power play, you always have that on projects, won't you? So, and you'll always have people who will resist on being nailed down by a group's decision. But if you are doing a proper job in describing it in a good way, and you have consistency around it and people agree on it, it's very difficult for even the most influential to undo a decision if they can't evidence it against some of the facts you just put into the decision making.
Yeah, I could see that being a very, well, depending on your point of view, it could be a very attractive for those who want to get on with the job, and unattractive for those who want to stop it.
I will say to you, Steve, that a few politicians here in UK have asked us to actually train them in CBA, because they can see the use for it as well. So we are having a workshop in Parliament this fall. That's
slightly worrying.
Yeah, usually politicians don't want to have anything in writing.
No.
Okay. Well, we don't have any more questions, and I think we're running out of time. So I don't know if there's any other burning question or comment or something that you want to add, or if not now, I mean, feel free to contact us again. And thank you very much for joining us today. I don't know if you girls want to say something else.
Yeah, I'm happy that we did the webinar and that people came up with such good questions. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do, so more research for us.
Yes.
So if you have other research ideas, just let us know too.
Simon, do you want to say something?
Two things I was wondering. First off, I think this is a good format. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think this is a good format because it's easily accessible and it's over in not so long time. You don't have to go all the way to a conference and stuff. So I appreciate that. Can any of you with some practical experience maybe just give a few examples on what's the time frame of making a decision? Since I'm talking about starting small, I'm wondering if making a decision using CBA is a 2 or 5 week process, or it can be done on smaller decisions in 15 minutes. Does the framework work both? Is it scalable? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, it depends. I mean, if you know CBA already, you can take 2 minutes to make a decision, you know. But the process, I mean, the first time that you make this, you need to get your team more aware of the new vocabulary and what distinctions are important to make the decision. So that takes some time. How many people is in your team? How many people are you starting to work with?
Well, on the level to make decisions, I would say there's 5. Yeah.
Okay.
And each of them has between 3 or 5 people in their specific teams.
I will say, Simon, on the project, we have different types of ways we do CBA. So if it's something that a team can pretty much lead by themselves, they'll just have a meeting and they'll document it in the right way and just structure the decision in the right way. And that could be part of a regular meeting that they're having every day or every week. Take 5 minutes as long as they have prepared for it. Like I said, preparation is key. And then we have other decisions that needs to go across different disciplines. That will take something like around, I don't know, two weeks. And then we have the really big design decisions, and they are over several workshops and can take, I think, 5 to 6 weeks. And they are the really key ones where you're kind of, you're changing a community or whatever. So the big ones. So it depends on the complexity of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on time. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us.